Welcome back to TMZ Live. Harvey and Babcock here. So tomorrow night will be the first time that a reporter sits down with Kamala Harris since she announced that she was going to make the run for president. But she will not be alone. She is going to be on CNN, interviewed by Dana Bash. But Tim Walz is also going to be on hand. And some people are wondering, is this really a sit down with Kamala Harris if Tim Walz is sitting right next to her? So there are a lot of things people are talking about. It's going to be interesting. Dana Bash is a really good journalist, but there are people who are saying, I think fairly, CNN definitely leans Harris, if not is squarely there. And is this really the interview people have been looking for? So joining us right now is somebody that we know who I think knows politics as well as just about anybody in the country. Elex Michaelson, who is the anchor of the Channel 11 News in Los Angeles, Fox, and also the host of The Issue Is, which really goes into politics and is a statewide show here. So, Elex, welcome back to TMZ Live.
Hey, Harvey, great to see you.
Good seeing you. So, what's your take on the choice here of CNN and Kamala along with her vice presidential running mate?
Well, Dana Bash is a fair pro who's widely respected by a lot of people. She's very good at keeping the tone very neutral, not getting in somebody's face and making the story about them and not about her. So congratulations to Dana Bash. CNN has huge resources and an ability to put the interview out in a lot of big spaces. It's interesting that she's choosing to do it with Tim Walz, which is frankly a little bit safer for both her and for Tim Walz. I think one of the big questions that both of them have to figure out right now is, what do they stand for? For Tim Walz, it's what does Kamala Harris stand for, and not wanting to get out ahead of her on positions. For Kamala Harris, it's maybe having a little bit of help that Tim Walz can be there in case things get weird or uncomfortable. It gives them each a bit of a buddy or a lifeline for this sort of interview. It's not that unusual that the running mate would sit with the candidate. You usually see that after one of these announcements, but you usually would see that like the day of the announcement or a day or two after the announcement.
But this is a little different because people have been saying, I think we're 40 days in, and she hasn't really had any kind of interaction with reporters. So people were kind of anticipating this would be her, and it changes the dynamic, right?
Right. It changes the dynamic and it makes it a little bit less risky for her. But there is a risk in what they're doing. In waiting this long, in announcing one interview, they're making the stakes very high for this one interview. And they didn't announce like she's going to do 3 or 4 interviews on the same day. And the problem is, if she makes a mistake or a gaffe, it's harder to move on from it. One of the things that Donald Trump is so good at doing is flooding the zone with so much stuff, some of it being lies, some of it being misinformation, some of it being off the deep end. But because there's so much of it, it's hard to keep up. And once you try to correct it or talk about that one thing, he's on to the next story. And by doing just this one interview this way, they raise the stakes.
Elex, I've heard so much criticism. Like Harvey said, 40 days, this isn't live. Go to a friendly venue. To what degree do you think this will satisfy the people who have criticized Kamala Harris for not talking to reporters?
The thing is that this race is so close that any little thing could make a difference at this point. She hasn't won. He hasn't won, but she also hasn't won. There's no question she's doing significantly better than Biden. There's no question that she's got the momentum. But if the election were held today, it's not clear that she would win. So maybe it is necessary that she starts to engage with the press a little bit and explain to people what she stands for. I mean, up to now, she's basically running as generic Democrat who isn't Biden or Trump, which is a really good position to be. I'm not the 80-year-old, is a good position to be, but it's clear she needs at least a little bit more to get her over the top. And maybe this will be the thing that helps get her there, because it's clear there's a lot of people in this country that don't know that much about her and what she stands for. And frankly, what she stood for even a few years ago when she was running for president, like Medicare for all and immigration, some of those positions seem seems to be switching based off of what her aides have said, but she hasn't explained what they are. And I'm guessing that's going to be one of the first things that Dana Bash asks her about is, do you believe what you said to us just a few years ago?
So how does she handle, and clearly what you said is right, that there has been a shift, but how does she handle the two weaknesses that Biden has, which would be, well, actually three: immigration, the economy, and that may not be fair, but that's the rap he gets, and Afghanistan. So does she get tied to that? Is that something that Dana Bash should focus on, or should she really just focus on what Kamala Harris thinks, what she said in the past, what she's saying now?
I think it's really interesting to know what she agrees with what Joe Biden did, what she didn't. I mean, she's been a very dutiful vice president up to this point, basically not saying anything other than what the administration has said, which is what you want as a vice president, but now she's her own candidate. So that's an interesting challenge. I think it's also going to be interesting, and what you're sort of getting a preview of in terms of some of her previous positions before she joined the administration, that, you know, being the vice president, meeting with world leaders, having this experience has allowed me to evolve and allowed me to learn new things. But it is a tightrope in terms of what does she say about immigration and inflation and all the rest of this stuff that people tie the president to. Obviously, there are ways to spin it. They say that there's been improvement on immigration. They'll say that on inflation, on immigration, they'll say that they had a bill that the Republicans didn't vote for. She'll go to a lot of those talking points you've been hearing. But it's different when you're the number one and not the number two.
Elex, why has she been so hesitant to sit down and do interviews? I know what the right would say. They'd say she can't read if it's not off a teleprompter. I know what that criticism would be. In your mind, why has she been so hesitant to sit down and answer questions?
Because she hasn't needed to. It's been working for her. Look at the trajectory that she's been on. She's been like a rocket ship in terms of the polls, and anything that she could have said would have just potentially alienated somebody. As I said before, if you're just running as, I'm not Donald Trump, I'm not Joe Biden, I'm not 80, and I'm running for a fresh new start and we're going to turn the page, that's a pretty popular opinion. She's completely united the Democratic Party because everybody in the Democratic Party agrees with that. When you get into the details, it starts to get, I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't necessarily agree with that. And so it has not hurt her so far to not talk to the press.
Yeah, but there's another side to that, which is that if she deals with it at the beginning, yeah, it's going to be dicier, but it kind of levels off, and you still have time before the election. The closer she gets to November, when she starts doing this stuff, where she starts interacting with reporters, the fresher it's going to be in voters' minds. And if she makes a misstep, that could get magnified in a bigger way than if it were way in the past.
I agree with you. I mean, so far, look at what she's done in a month, though. She basically became the nominee, which she wasn't expecting, had to pick a VP, had to put together a convention, and all the rest of it. But now we are at that point where it's like, okay, it's time to talk to the press. And that's why I'm suggesting that just doing one interview is not going to be enough, that she's better off to flood the zone, to go all over the place so that
should she do Fox? Should she do Fox News?
She should do Fox News, at least with Bret Baier. I'm not saying necessarily going on with Sean Hannity or Laura Ingraham, but sit down with Bret Baier. Doesn't that show her strength? Doesn't that show
but Alex,
that
there's no chance that'll ever happen, right? There's no chance.
I don't know. Pete Buttigieg does a really good job there. Gavin Newsom just did it. I mean, there are people that go. There are a lot of Democrats that watch Fox News. I think that would show a level of confidence that would really be sending a message that I'm here to talk to all Americans wherever they are. Some of that's Fox News, some of that's podcasts, some of that's memes online. I mean, people are getting their information in so many different ways, and the more you can be in more places, given some of that's TMZ Live, people get their news in different ways, and you got to go where people are.
Okay, Elex, we love having you on. Thanks.
Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it.
Bye, Elex.